So in this life, I was born into a culture, society which ate meat, the flesh of animals, and other fluids. I was taught to essentially rape and murder animals, and that such was acceptable. It was, to me, looking back, it was an entrenched system of just this wrongful behavior. I guess on some levels I would compare it to the beating of human children, if you will, or you could compare it to the slavery of humans, in that it was this large cultural thing that, I speak about it as it's like the past. Obviously, it's still going on in my world. And just to be clear, it's not the flesh eating that is what is wrong. It's not the eating of the flesh. It's the taking of a life wrongfully, or it's the raping of an animal, as in when you rape an animal to rape the milk from an animal, or you pen up an animal and you rape them to get their eggs, right? So, I used to hunt animals. I murdered animals while hunting. I murdered animals while fishing. I trapped animals. I caged animals, making pets and showcases out of them. I did firsthand rapes and murders of animals. This is just the main list that I just put together. I'm sure there's more, but as far as firsthand me doing with my own two hands, the fish, I put them in fish bowls. I ripped the guts out of fish, chopped their heads off, and I devoured their flesh. Backing up, I used worms as bait. As I murdered these worms, I captured these worms and I used them to murder fish. I would rip apart worms. And as a kid, insects. I was not really taught to respect life in the sense that I would teach. If I had children, I would teach, yes, of course there's force in the name of defense, and quote unquote, everything is in its own dominion. You're not going to, there's a lot more to say about, I can go into this later, about, I feel that if we get things tuned up, some people would want to throw out the argument, oh, what if you hit an insect or a bird with your car, you're going to get all bent out of shape. I'm like, well, first of all, that's an accident. It's not like I'm going out purposely. Now, if you swerve to purposely hit an animal, well, then that's the same thing as, I'm a human animal, so I should say other animals, right? I wouldn't want someone to swerve purposely to hit me, right? So the animals who I, firsthand murdered in this life, I murdered a chipmunk. I remember I shot this chipmunk right in the, murdered a chipmunk. Squirrels, I murdered squirrels. Doves, shot a bird on a wire. And other birds. Crabs, lobsters, and clams, I boiled them alive, firsthand. Shrimp. I caged hamsters and gerbils and rabbits and snakes, frogs, and other lizards. I tried to force breed animals. I had these hamsters or gerbils, and I remember as a child growing up, and here I am today, but growing up, I tried to force them together to mate. I remember they were so scared, they were shaking, and look how sick I was. All this stuff I'm telling you, this is the worst of my life. I went out and I attempted murder on deer and other creatures. Luckily, I'm glad I really didn't have too much luck in that end, and I'm thankful looking back. There's a lot more to say. It was a brainwash, I believe. As a child, I was taken to the farm show where you see all these animals cows, chickens, pigs, horses, which horses I believe I rode on some horses involuntarily in this life. They were penned up, they were being prodded and whipped around, they were stalled out. It was a very gross lifestyle, and people obviously in my time would glamorize it. They'd have the Kentucky Derbies or the whatever, and then people would dress all up and go to that, and they glamorized the abuse of animals, just like, again, it's such a parallel that it's so disgustingly real. Like, back in the day, there was the slavery of men, and a lot of times they would do that, or you can speak about the gladiator times. You know, as far as the animals that I devoured, I would devour everything under the sun that was on the menu, from buffalo to alligator to geese to lambs to duck. Every creature that you can imagine, I would want to get a bite of. I was so entrenched and sick. I was the kid with my plates piled high at the Kentucky Fried Chicken, where bones and bones and bones, and it was, I'd drive from McDonald's going straight to Wendy's and the Burger King. Now, I say those names just like me, Neil. I used to be a part of that. I'm just as guilty as Old Man McDonald or Wendy or the Burger King, right? I would support them. I'd go and I paid money and I fueled them. And it's a very gross thing to me that I was a party to and a part of. And a lot of people getting this today may laugh at me or may chalk this off as nothing. Even people that I knew as my friends and my family. I mean, again, I was the biggest meat eater in the world. I once said to myself and out loud to others, I once said, I will always eat meat. And I would mock off my sister when my sister was trying to eat a veggie burger, or my mom, and I would make fun of them and mock them. I was a very sick individual in those times. And then, through a chain of events, which is a whole nother video, I was able to snap out of it, if you will. And I changed. And if it's possible, I don't ever want to be born again into a world where I'm taught to rape or murder any being and that's acceptable. I would just rather be aborted, if you will, or skip that life, or ideally, I'd just rather be born into a world where it's known it's wrong to do those things. Just like I could have been born into 1820 Georgia or Alabama or any southern state of America where they had the slavery of men, and I could have been born with a whip put into my hand, and they could have said, when I'm 10, 12 years old, they could have said, okay, it's your turn to learn, go out there and whip those slaves. And so, just like there's people born into a lifestyle where they're taught to milk cows, or to butcher the pig, to slit the pig's throat, right? It's a powerful thing what a child learns, and the development of a child, and what's impregnated in the mind of the child as the child grows up. Anyways, I don't know if this is going to mean anything to anybody, but I'm putting it down for the record because this is the worst of me in this life. I mean, the things that I did to my fellow man, which there are some bad ones on the list, but however, nothing compares to the pain and torture that I put upon other creatures in the animal kingdom. I'm deeply sorry, I'm sincerely sorry, and I regret doing all of that stuff. I can sit here today and speak from both sides. I once did those horrible things, and now I moved away from that. I've been eating a plant-based diet for the past 18 years. A lot of people would want to argue the health aspects. That's part of the brainwash as well. They tell you as a child you need milk, meat, and eggs. That's what you need, they tell you, for your muscles and your bones and your strength, and that's what you're born believing. Well, me and a bunch of other people who have been eating plant-based diets for quite some time, well, I think we're proof to the contrary. So, at any rate, I appreciate your time tuning in. If you took the time to watch this video, just think about life in a broad sense, and just think about who you want to be. How do you want to be remembered? Where is it leading you? Where are your actions today leading you as you move into the future tomorrow? Hope and great peace bind through a greater understanding. Thank you again for watching this video. Hope and peace.